Hi, welcome back to Arley Farm. Now, I actually discovered a very easy money cheat the other day when playing this, and I discovered it entirely by accident. So I'm going to take you for a quick drive and I'm going to show you this money cheat. So we'll just jump in the old MX-5, I think. Okay, so as I mentioned, I think in the last video, it was the last one, the one before, but I think it was the last one, this farm went from being my least profitable one at only making about $5,000 a day, because it has the fewest number of cows of any of my dairy farms, to my most profitable when I remembered that I designed this map with the idea of doing a lot of contract work. So to give you an example, this paddock here that I don't own, I picked up a contract on this to mow this paddock and bale it up and then sell the silage bales, and I got 75 bales off this one paddock. It's one paddock, 75 bales. Now, an interesting thing to note is that a difference between when you're doing silage bale contracts and when you're doing your own silage bales, I don't know whether the number of bales changes depending on whether you're baling them yourself or whether you're doing them as a contract or not, but so maybe I get fewer bales on this if I do it if it was I owned the paddock. The one thing I do know is different is that if I'm baling, making bales and wrapping them for myself, they take a few days, or which is really a few months, because remember I'm playing 1 day months. They take a few days to turn into silage. If I don't own the paddock and I'm doing it as a contract, they instantly turn into silage the moment they're wrapped. So what I already knew and I already worked out sort of thing is, if you go to, sorry, not to that menu, to this menu here, and go to the contracts. Now, because this map here is almost exclusively grass, almost the whole map is grass, basically the only contracts I've ever seen are baling contracts like this. So what I was doing is I was going and choosing, I was looking for contracts of around $10,000, $8,000 to $10,000. I'd get one like that sort of thing, and what I would do is I'd accept that contract, and because the grass equipment I've got for my own paddocks, because my own paddocks are a lot smaller, so I've only got very small mowers and things. So when there were contracts for larger paddocks, for the $10,000 ones, they're always larger paddocks, what I would do is the first contract I accepted, I would choose to take it with the equipment, and of course in this case you see you get 8,350 for this contract, but you'd lose 549 of that for using their equipment instead of your own. And then I'd go and pick up 2 or 3 other contracts at the same time, choose to do them without the equipment so I get the full amount. Then I'd use the equipment that it gave me for doing one contract, and I'd go and do all 3 contracts at once using the one lot of equipment. So I'm only paying for one lot of equipment hire. Oops, that wasn't very clever. And I would get 3 contracts finished at about $10,000 each, so therefore I'd end up with about $30,000. And in reality I'd end up with a bit more than that, because the number of bales you get is always slightly more than what they're expecting, and therefore the last 3 or 4 bales that you sell as part of the contract you're actually getting money for as if they're your own. But one of the contracts, so I was doing that the other day and I picked up 3 contracts. I hired equipment with one of them and not with the other 2, but I didn't realise there's only one bale selling point on this map, and I'll show you where that is. We'll go for a drive, so I've got time to show you this sort of stuff, so I shall. If I turn here and go down this way, I really should have a look at this mod, the MX-5 mod, see if I can't remove the roof of it. The roof's a different colour from the body, so I suspect it should be easy enough to remove. I should remove the roof and the roll bar that's under it, so it's actually got the convertible top folded down instead of up like that. But I haven't ever got around to it. So just inside this door here, this is the only bale sell point, and it will not accept grass bales. So if you're making your own silage bales, and remember they take a couple of months to turn into silage when you're doing them for yourself, You can't just bring them straight down here and sell them, or even just not wrap them and bring them down here and sell them instead. That sell point will sell silage bales once they are actually silage, and it will also accept straw bales. But I think that's the only bales it accepts there, straw and silage. Anyway, so because that's the only bale sell point, or I thought it was the only bale sell point, and we'll get into that in a wee bit more depth in a second. Okay, all the bale contracts that say, you know, mow this paddock, bale it up, then go and sell the bales, it always says take it down to that bale sell point. I was doing that, and I picked up 3 bale contracts, as I said, only hiring equipment with one of them, and I realised I had made a mistake. Because one of the bale contracts, it did say to mow the paddock, turn it into silage, wrap the bales, you know, bale it up, make it into silage bales, then go and sell the silage bales. But instead of being that sell point I just showed you, it wants me to take it up here further, past that old stolen car wreck that's been dumped there. And it wants me to come right up here. Just try not to wreck my MX-5 on these very, very narrow roads. On this map, because all the roads are only single lane wide, there's only, or most of the roads are only single lane wide like that. The traffic only runs around the outside loop roads, which are 2 lane, so all the internal roads don't have traffic on them. But I'm actually okay with that. I think it's quite realistic, because I think on most maps there's actually far too much traffic. If you're out in the country, which I assume you are if you're with farms, that farm sort of thing, there wouldn't actually be that much traffic. So here, on this farm here, is the BGA on the map, and the contract, one of the contracts I picked up wanted me to bring the bales down to the BGA to sell them instead of to that other sell point. Now, sell them at the BGA, I've got to put them in there, presumably with a with something with a pair of bale forks on the front, like a front loader or something like that with a set of bale forks on the front. I didn't have something like that. My tractor wouldn't reach that high, the tractor I've got. I didn't want to hire another piece of equipment just to put bales in there. So what I did is I mowed that paddock, I baled it up, then I went and took all the bales down to that other sell point I just showed you. I sold them all there, and then, of course, the contract still wasn't complete, so I hadn't brought them down to the BGA there. I then cancelled out of the contract, and by cancelling out the contract, of course, it doesn't pay me for it. Now, the one I cancelled out of wasn't the one that I hired the equipment through, so I don't know, because as I said, I picked up 3 contracts hiring equipment for one of them and not for the other 2, using the hired equipment in all 3 fields. I don't know if it would still charge you the rental on the equipment if the contract you cancelled out of was the one with the hired equipment or not. But what I do know is that for selling the bales, and there was about 60 bales off the field that I'd mown and baled up, so selling those 60 bales, I got $30,000 for them. And had I completed that contract, it was only worth $10,000. So by selling the bales at, oh, that's not good. It's not good at all. Let's hope I don't do that in my real MX-5. Especially since my head pokes above the height of the roll bale on my MX-5. Anyway, so by selling the bales and then cancelling the contract, I actually made $20,000 extra profit over if I'd actually completed the contract as intended. Now, it's not a cheat I'm planning on using. As I said, I used it that time because I didn't want to hire a piece of equipment to put the bales into that other place. But to me it would kind of be cheating, because if you accepted a contract from another farmer to to mow his paddock for him and take all the bales down to the sell point, he'd expect you to actually do that job, and he would not be impressed in real life if you mowed the lawns, baled it all up, wrapped the bales, and then took the bales and sold them for yourself, and then said to him, oh look, I'm not going to do that contract, thank you very much. So he'd be like, but you've already mown the grass, so what have you done with it? So yeah, to me it's it was a brilliant money cheat. It gave me an extra 20k over if I'd actually completed the contract as it was intended to be done, but it would be cheating. So, oh, I parked it too close to the vehicle, so I couldn't get out of it. Never mind. So that's a money cheat I discovered. Now, actually, while we're looking at the MX-5 and things, I've got another amusing story to tell you. There's actually 2 MX-5 clubs in Wellington, which is where I live. Okay, so in the area where I live, there's 2 different MX-5 clubs. Now, I belong to both of them because one of them's free to belong to. I actually only really go on runs with one of them. And the reason why is when I joined the other one was on a Facebook group. I didn't really know anything about them, and I went along, and I don't think it was really the kind of club for me. Basically, in real life, or in New Zealand at least, there's 2 different kinds of MX-5 owners, and pretty much everyone falls into one of those 2 camps. And I suspect, for those people watching who are American, it's probably the same with Corvette ownership in America. And I'd love to hear from you know, if any of you have friends or neighbours or that you yourselves own a Corvette. I know that AK's dad has one, and but I'd just love to know if what I've discovered with MX-5 ownership, whether it is in fact the same with Corvette ownership. And there's 2 different kinds of owners of MX-5s, and the 2 different clubs, one tends to be for each kind of owner. So the first club, the one that I don't run with, so I am a member of, but I don't go on runs with them, and its membership is free for this one, is what I call an open bonnet club. And the reason it's called an open bonnet club is the average age of the owners of the cars is probably around 20 years of age, and every time they stop for any reason, they open the bonnet of their car. And the reason they open the bonnet of their car is to show off all the modifications that they've done to it. So that's why I call it an open bonnet club. Okay. The other club, the one that I do go on a lot of runs with and things, really enjoy doing things with this club. The average age of that club is, rather than being about 20, is probably about 65. Okay, and I call that a closed bonnet club. The reason I call it a closed bonnet club is when you pull up somewhere to stop, no one opens their bonnet, and the reason no one opens their bonnet is everybody's car is absolutely stock standard, so there'd be no point in opening the bonnet, so all you'd see is a sea of black plastic in front of you if you did. You know, there's black plastic covers on just about every part of it, like there is with any semi-modern Japanese car. But because the average age is about 65, which is closer to the age I am, rather than 20, which is a very long way away from the age I am, it's a club that I enjoy riding with more. And as I said, I did go on one run with the other club just to see what it was like, and a couple of things I discovered. One is they drive a lot faster than the club that I normally run with, and quite frankly I don't want to risk speeding tickets and things, so I prefer to stick to speed limits on most roads and things. Maybe occasionally when you get out in the middle of nowhere where there's going to be no cops and there's some nice curves, you might accidentally forget what the speed limit is for a short period type thing. But on the whole I like to stick to speed limits because that is the law, and I don't want to be putting my licence at risk in any way. Also, I've got to say that the club, the open bonnet club, where the average age of the people in the club was, I would estimate, about 20, so a lot of the guys were bringing along what I assume is their girlfriends, who, you know, looked to be about 18 to 20 as well, and let's just say they were dressed in ways that there's no way I'd let my daughter out of the house wearing anything that they were wearing. And quite frankly, I don't feel particularly comfortable around people like that. I know my wife definitely doesn't feel comfortable with me being around people like that. For her first husband was a serial cheater, and he'd basically sleep with anything that moved. So as a result, my wife does trust me, because she learned before we got married that she could trust me, but I know that she finds trust something that's very hard when it comes to men. So she does trust me, but it doesn't come easy to her. So in order to help make it easier for her, I don't give her any reason not to trust me. I'd never dream of going out for lunch with a woman, for example, unless it was my sister or something like that, then I would. But otherwise, unless there's a group of us, I wouldn't even dream of going out for lunch with a woman. I won't go. I don't have female friends I go and hang out with and things, just because it makes it a lot easier for her to trust me if I don't give her any reason not to. And I think if I was to start hanging out with this other club, the Open Bonnet Club, she would probably struggle a wee bit. So the other club really does suit me better all round. Anyway, so I really started this video to tell you about this cheat I've discovered about accepting silage bale contracts and then selling the bales for yourself and keeping the money from that and cancelling the contract, and how it makes you an awful lot more money than actually doing the contract. So if anyone does want extra money quickly, that would be a good way of doing it if you're, for example, on a console, you can't just go into the XML file and give yourself money if you want it. It's not something I'm going to do. I did it once because I picked up a contract that I couldn't fulfill, and I didn't realise I couldn't fulfill it until I'd already made all the bales, but I'm certainly not going to make a habit of doing that. And that's what I really started this video to talk to you about. Okay, well thank you all, and I'll catch up with you later. Bye.